Now I have nobody telling me what I have to do, what I don't have to do. Because this household, again, is like, my mom is still, she's still very domineering, and now it's like, I don't have to listen to anybody, and I don't have to do things that I don't want to do anymore. And so I literally hit the streets.
And now,
Aye, aye. I'm the captain now.
coming to you from the K2 Studios in San Diego, California.
This sounds great. You sound amazing.
I always sound amazing.
It's the world famous
Everybody's hitting off like BFFs.
Kris and Kristine Show. Hey, what's happening, everybody? How are you doing today? Thank you so much for listening, and I am Kris.
And I'm Kristine, and welcome to episode 136 of the Kris and Kristine Show. Do-do-do-do.
Fantastic, fabulous 4th of July weekend, baby doll.
It sure is, and we have been hearing the fireworks all around us. So if you hear a little bit of popping in the background, it's because the neighbors are getting restless, which is interesting because fireworks, like residential fireworks, are illegal in San Diego County.
I think all fireworks are illegal in San Diego County unless you have a permit to launch it, say a festival or the what is it, the
the SeaWorld stuff.
Right, SeaWorld or the zoo. The zoo does fireworks? No,
I mean, that would scare the animals.
Of course, duh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that all kinds of fireworks are illegal, including sparklers, which a lot of people like to use at their weddings. And so they're not even allowed to use sparklers at weddings down here because fire season.
It's fire season all year round around here. It's always pretty dry. We're in a drought right now.
A really bad drought right now.
Yeah, I drove by a lake recently. You can see the levels where it was really, really low. I think it was up in Escondido area, that lake up there off the side of the freeway. Lake Hodges is what it's called. And you can see the actual water level go down, recede from where it normally would be.
So all that to say, exercise extra caution, and if you live in Southern California, don't light fireworks. And if you live anywhere else, please, please, please be super careful and keep a bucket of water nearby.
Yeah, or a fire hydrant maybe. I saw this really funny video on Instagram today from the LA News. I think it was in the NBC News channel in Los Angeles. And they posted a video of these car crash dummies holding fireworks to see what happens when they a sparkler or a bottle rocket or something goes off in their face or their hand. They're taking the heads off of these
That's so weird.
Car crash.
The crash test dummies, the ones they put in the cars?
Yes, exactly like those
ones.
Oh
my gosh.
And they're getting blown, their hands getting blown up and their faces getting blown off. All of them firecrackers. So be careful out there, everybody.
That's so crazy. I remember when I was younger, my cousins who live in Oregon came down here and they brought some of the fireworks that are legal in Oregon but are illegal in California with them.
What are they called? Do you remember what they're called?
They did the what are the ones with the bottles?
Bottle rockets?
Yeah, bottle rockets, and there's this other one. I can't remember what it's called, but they were setting them off in the front yard, in the street. And right then, right as they were setting one off, the police came around the corner and caught us.
No way.
Yes. We had a whole group out there. But, and then when I was younger, we used to go out to the river in Kingsburg. It's called the Kings River. And my uncle and his friends would always set off fireworks. I remember one year they had this one. Because growing up, we always set off fireworks. It's still legal up in Fresno County. But it was this one, it was like a spinning star, and you would hammer it into a tree, which of course now
that sounds horrible.
Super dangerous.
I know. You hammer this flaming object into a
tree, and it spins around, and it spun around, but it lit too fast, and sparks got the actual flame sparks got into the eyes of 3 of the adults. And they were and they had to rinse out their eyes, and everything was crazy.
I remember this time in Mexico. When you start a story off with saying
one time in Mexico.
This one time in Mexico, down south, we were camping down by the beach. We used to do this a lot. I think it was San Felipe area, and we stayed down there all the time. But anyways, we found these fireworks. There's fireworks, Mexico. Come on, they're a dime a dozen. Fireworks everywhere.
I didn't know that, but okay.
But unless they changed the rules, but they were where we were at.
Let's go to TJ.
Exactly. So they had these fireworks, and we got a handful of those little small firecracker kind, right? And I was little, probably like maybe 10 years old, maybe 12 years old. And we were down there and we had one and I was so scared, so I thought like, I'm going to throw it, light it and throw it. But I guess timing was off. So I went to go throw it and it blew up in my hand. But I didn't.
Where's your scar?
Yeah. See this finger? It's not there anymore?
Uh-huh.
I'm just
funny.
kidding. No, but it blew up and I was like in pain and I was screaming. And of course I was a kid,
Wait, you screaming? Like if you stub your toe, it's literally like the end of the world. So when you say screaming, like how dramatic was it?
Well, I thought I lost my hand,
Although you probably looked down and still saw it was there, but you were convinced.
Right. It stung real bad. It was a bang. And of course, like I was freaking out because, even as a kid that young, you kind of realize that fireworks are kind of dangerous. Like the bad things can happen,
Now you said it kind of stung. On a scale of 1 to stingray, where was it?
Not as bad as a stingray because there wasn't any blood. But
there wasn't blood and it exploded in your hand?
If there was blood, my hand would have gone. My finger would have been missing. I think.
It wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, never trust the TJ fireworks. Maybe they're duds and they're not going to work quite as right as the real ones. But that's what happened. I went to go throw it and it did bang. And before I got over my shoulder, my arm went over the other side, it blew up my hand. So,
oh my goodness. And what's so funny is because you're such a helicopter dad with our boys. You're like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And now you're telling all these stories of what you really did. I think you were a troublemaker growing up. And maybe that's why you're like you are like the ultimate helicopter dad.
Well, first off, thank you so much.
It's not a compliment.
And another thing that I used to do when we were younger is we had a house. It was a 1-story house, but it had a pitched roof. So it had a little taller part. So we get on the roof, like the highest part of the roof. And we try to make a parachute out of a tarp and some rope. And we had like an old mattress down below.
And you say we, you and who?
I think me, maybe the neighbor kids, maybe my brother. I don't know. Maybe just me by myself. And everybody was just videotaping it. Hey, so I would jump off the thing. We try to jump off that and see if it would work. But the only problem was we realized with those makeshift parachutes, they don't seem to want to catch the air until you really get a good...
Because you don't have far enough to go.
Right. I think. We also used to make little zip lines out of rope and out of a tree and run zip lines down to like whatever we could tie it to at the bottom. And we didn't have like a pulley system. What we had, instead of a zip line pulley, we used a piece of a PVC pipe. You cut it probably about a foot long and you put the thing around the rope and then you slide down to the bottom.
That hand motion you just gave was very interesting.
Well, you slide down the bottom. That's how you do it.
Well, what's so funny though is like when our boys are getting into trouble, I wouldn't even say getting into trouble, but like trying new and interesting things, you're like so hyper fixated on what they're doing. And I would say I try to give them a little bit more freedom when it comes to them, like, trying to explore different things, but you're such a nervous parent. And it's so interesting that you're telling me these stories now because you'll freak out for our boys if they ride their bicycle down to the end of the street without you versus like what you're talking about, almost blowing up your hand. What was it the other day that you were freaking out that they did? Oh, making s'mores on the gas range. You were like, they were using fire. They were using the grill outside. And I'm like, babe, we did worse than that. I used to play with fire all the time when I was younger.
Yeah, speaking of fire and fireworks, my crazy neighbors, they had some leftover gas cans, oil, who knows what, in the side. And they made like a torch or something. We're dumping gasoline on top of it. And I seen like a video or a show. Remember that old show? It was like the show was like a hospital show where like true stories. They reenact the true stories of like people doing stupid stuff.
Yes.
And getting taken to the hospital. It was a show like that. And I remember one episode where the guys were dumping fire on something and they were, dumping gas on like a fire flame thing they had going. These kids and they all caught on fire and craziness. Gosh, that could have been us. Now I think about it, but
that could have totally been me and my friends. We almost burned down the house of one of my friends. This is a story that don't repeat this at home, children. We were trying to experiment to see if it was possible to light ice cream on fire. And exactly,
doesn't it melt?
Exactly what you would think. However, we rigged a way for the ice cream to catch fire. It's interesting. It's not edible, but if you were to take a scoop of rainbow sherbet ice cream and spray aerosol hairspray over the top of it and then light it with a match, that thing goes up in flames. And it doesn't melt the ice cream right away. But what it does do is catch the curtains of your friend's kitchen on fire if you light it too close to that because hairspray is very flammable.
Yeah.
We almost burned the house down.
Hey,
not mine.
But not to worry. I think they sold out of Aquanet in the 80s.
That's not true. I have 3 cans of it in the garage.
Get out of here.
I spray my pampas grass with
You
it.
can find Aquanet?
Well, it's Rave.
Rave, okay.
Yeah, Rave's like the comparable one to the
But
Aquanet.
didn't it like destroy the ozone layer or something like that? They kept saying like the hairspray.
Yeah, the
was, like,
aerosol cans do. The other thing that we used to do, don't do this at home, children. This is like the what not to do. We would get those clicker lighters and then spray hairspray on top of it and make it into like a flamethrower.
Yeah, any kind of like was it spray? Was it? I think WD-40 does the trick too. I believe.
Oh, I've never done WD-40. That's so dangerous. Okay, maybe we should put a cap on this segment because here we are talking about fire safety and we are obviously pyros.
Hey, switching over to riding bikes and kid stuff, one thing we used to always do as kids was jump over each other on the bicycles.
What?
Like we'd have as many kids we could lay down.
Like on top of each other?
No, like lay down like in a row. Like everybody, all the kids lay down and we're gonna jump. And so the guy
absolutely nothing will go wrong in this scenario.
So the guy who was laying closest to the ramp, he was safe. The guy leaning furthest away from the ramp, he was like in the danger zone. So you really don't know if he was going to make it or not.
Yeah.
But if he didn't make it, he'd be hitting you. So that's why you'd be like, and you close your eye. Oh, we do all kinds of fun
Did anybody
stuff.
get like a broken bone from that?
You know, I never broke a bone in my life.
Knock on wood, because the world will end if Kris breaks a bone.
I thought I had a couple of times, though. Let me tell you. Yeah, you know, like riding a bicycle down the hill with a blindfold on.
What? Okay, you have no room to talk when it comes to trying to keep our kids from doing crazy things. You were wild.
Yeah, we played baseball in the backyard.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah,
Baseball
what
in the
else did we do in the crazy backyard? You know, slingshots. Oh, one time we had the slingshot set. I'm like, hey, Danny, my brother. Hey, put this apple on your head. I had a bow and arrow set too, you know?
No, you did not. You did not try to shoot it off of his head.
No, but I did have a bow and arrow set, and I was trying to, I was a bad aim too, you know? So like, we'd have like the target like on the big stacks of hay right in the yard, you know?
I thought you were going to say on him.
No, it would crush his head. And I'd be trying to hit the target, and I'd be like, you know, if you ever shoot bow and arrow, you'd have, or archery as I call it, you have like this arm thing because the bow string snaps back and it slams your arm.
Right, or the arrows could like slice you with the tines in the back. Yeah.
Right. Well, they have the kit I had. I had one of those like kits I got for Christmas. Thank you, Santa Claus. And it was one that was for kids or whatever. You know, it had like 3 or 4 arrows, and like I think I lost all the arrows in the backyard. You know, you can imagine shooting them, missing the target, they're going somewhere else. That was a good. I wish I had another archery set. Those are fun.
Yeah, and you know what? We have like the perfect setup here with the hill right next to us, where we could actually stick like a bay of hail like on that area and actually like do some archery stuff. That would be so fun.
You ever shot a bow and arrow before?
Oh, dude, yes.
Oh, that's right. You're from Fresno. I forget.
What? No, summer camp all the time. We would have archery classes at summer camp. I was pretty good aim.
Did you ever try to shoot an apple off someone's head though?
No, I did not.
How about okay?
But I did use like my dad would take me to the range, the shooting range. His friends had like the fancy bows, like the professional ones that are like titanium or whatever, and so I would like learn how to like pull the arrow back and.
Oh, those are the ones that have like the sprockets and stuff in them. The compound bows. Those ones.
Kung Pao bows.
Yeah, the Kung Pao chicken. It's a Kung Pao chicken bow.
What is happening on this episode today? Compound bow.
Compound bow. Yes.
I don't know what it's called. I just know it was fancy and expensive.
And they have like the special. Those ones can like hunt deer with those things.
Yes, my sister shoots that. She's actually hunted a deer using her bow and arrow.
That's crazy.
Her husband hunts with a gun. Her and her daughter.
With a gun? What a whip! You gotta get a bow and arrow going.
No, him and
how about a spear?
Like I was saying, my brother-in-law hunts with a gun. My sister and my niece decided to opt for the bow and arrow, and so my sister actually did get a deer maybe 2 years ago. Maybe it was just before COVID. But yeah, she's pretty good shot with her bow and arrow. Isn't that pretty awesome?
It's way awesome.
Yeah.
I want to go hunting with like a spear. You know, like back in like the, I don't know.
Dances with Wolves.
No, they had bow and arrow.
Patriot.
Yeah, exactly. Back in those days, we had a spear, and you can just throw it across the field and like, you know, nail it. You know, like the
spear or like the axe.
Oh, Oh, like a hatchet or something?
Do you know? Okay, I know we've been very like all over the place, but did you know there's a thing? I know it's in San Diego, but I don't know if it's other places where you can actually go and do axe throwing.
Yes, that is called the battle axe. And there's a place in San Diego.
Why are you calling me that? That's not so nice.
Battle axe? I don't know if I'd call you that. But so this place is in San Diego. I do believe it's in the Claremont,
There's like
Mission
4 of
Gorge
them.
area.
There's one in North Park too.
Yeah, you throw it against the wooden whatever thing it has there. They had a mock-up fake version of that at Dave & Buster's. There's like a plastic one with like the target had like these like a bunch of like these little plastic little finger things sticking out, so the axe would kind of stick into those. Supposedly, it never worked for me.
You totally lost me. I was just talking about like the actual axe throwing because you were saying like back in the old days, you getting to your carnal roots. I thought maybe you'd want to like go throw some axes.
Or I kill a bear with my bare hands, you know, I just wring them to death. Give a noogie or a wedgie, however they take it.
Speaking of bears, bears and Instagram. This is going to make sense. So you know how you can watch things on Instagram? Like you'll watch one video and then all of a sudden it'll start bringing reels into your feed that are like that specific type of
thinks category. That you like that stuff now, so now you're all in.
Yeah. So I watched this one video of a bear and it was like, I don't even know what it was doing. Maybe it was like breaking into somebody's house. And now like every time I open up Instagram, it gives me like 5 or 6 videos of bears. And you know what? I'm not mad about it. I actually have really started to like watching these videos of bears. I don't even know why. They're pretty interesting creatures.
Are the bear videos like breaking into cars and like harassing people?
All kinds of stuff. There was one where it was like trying to get into a car and actually like got on top of it and was like jumping on top of it. And then there was another one where it was just like hunting salmon on this river, and you see there's 4 people, because they're videoing it, there's 4 people sitting alongside the river like in their waders, like they had been fly fishing, and you see this huge bear just like running up and grabbing a fish, and it just kind of like looks at them and keeps running. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they are so lucky, because that was a huge bear. But then there was another one I was watching, and it was like a bear was chasing a skier down a hill while they were skiing, and the skier was like completely oblivious to the fact there was a bear running down behind them. And you could hear people from the ski lift, like they were videoing it, like, go faster, go faster.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like ski for your life.
Yeah. And the skier was just like skiing back and forth. But literally you could see this bear running down like almost the entire mountain after this skier. And
no way.
It was crazy. I'm going to have to find it for you.
Bears are super cute and adorable and cute and cuddly until you watch the movie The Revenant.
The Revenant? Is that the Brad Pitt one?
No, that's the Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Oh, I like how you just said that, Leonardo DiCaprio. I get those two mixed up, both of the pretty boys. So yes, I saw that one.
With the bear scene?
And where he like lived inside of the bear?
No, he got attacked by a bear.
But didn't he like get into the cavity of the horse or something?
Yeah, that was later on. That was like the least of his worries.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, they call it the bear attack scene of the movie. It's very realistic how they did it, and it was all done in one take. It's a crazy. If you watch the movie, please watch that scene from The Revenant. It's probably on YouTube. I'm sure it's on YouTube, and it's just a crazy bear attack scene. And it was funny. I remember the first time I watched it, I had it on digital at the house. I bought it on digital, and my son was youngest, Mason. I think he was 5 years ago, so maybe he was like 4 years old.
So it must have been like a year before we met. He would have been 5.
So about 5 years old, Mason was watching that scene with me on the TV, and he was glued to the scene. He was like shaking, kind of like, oh my goodness, because bears are cute and cuddly when they're kids, they're like, cute, and you see a bear attack somebody on the movie screen in graphic form. He's kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's so crazy. Well, yeah, that's interesting, but I've been watching all of these bear videos, and I know we've kind of been all over the place today, but what's been going on with you this week, Chris?
Well, I've got the radio station up in full gear. I actually had another podcast come on, and I recorded a session with them with some of their favorite music from their band. Their podcast is all about a music band called The Hold Steady. And
Hold Steady?
The Hold Steady is the band they are into.
Oh, The Hold Steady? Okay.
Yeah. So their podcast is about the band and about their tour dates and their group and all that fun, fantastic stuff. So I said, why not have you guys on the radio show, and we can have you guys, we can talk about you guys, We can play 3 of your favorite songs from the group or whatever.
Why did you choose 3 songs?
That way I can keep the entire session to like 20, 25-minute tops. I didn't want to go too long. Mm-hmm. So I just picked that. That way I can throw it into the radio station. Now I got it playing on the radio station. I got it playing for the entire month of July, twice a day. It's playing in the morning at 8 a.m. Pacific and at 4 p.m. Pacific. I've been playing twice a day.
That's awesome. Did you actually get to hear it today?
Yeah, I heard it twice. The only thing I can't figure out what it's doing, though, because it's on autopilot, for some reason, it's trying to fill the entire, 30 minutes. Even though the recording went from, 26 minutes, it's trying to fill the entire 30 minutes or something goofy.
Interesting.
Yeah, so what it's doing is it's playing the entire session and then playing it over again.
For 4 minutes?
Yeah, then it's stopping. And I went on today to try to figure that out, but it's one of the things about the radio station I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know. It's a learning experience trying to figure this stuff out.
Well, you're doing a great job, and K2 Radio is off and running. And you know what's interesting is, because I know you've been playing some promos for Christine Smith Designs on this podcast and then also on the radio station. I've been getting some interesting hits on my website, some interesting traffic over the last week.
You have?
Yesterday, I had somebody check out my website from the Netherlands. And then I've been getting some other ones where it doesn't register what the city is based off of what they're listening. But, I would like to think that maybe I can attribute that to the podcast promo and the radio promo. So congratulations for getting yourself out there with a worldwide listener base. Is there anything else that's been going on with you this week that you wanted to share?
I can't think of anything. So what's new with you, baby?
Well, it's been a busy week. We had all 3 kids here, and it definitely was a lot to be able to manage, working. But the great thing is that I got to transition my work into my new studio, and it was perfect for me this week. We did record the episode for this podcast in there last week, right?
No, we did not.
Oh, did we record an interview?
Yeah, but not this one.
Oh, we recorded something. Anyways, we were testing it out, and it was very interesting. And I let you use the studio for a couple of days, and then I took it back because I had work that I needed to do. It's been really nice to be able to go out there. But I would say I got pretty angry one day because I got up early and I was looking for my stuff, and things were missing because you'd moved them around, and I was trying to get my computer charger to try and go work out in my studio. And I finally got all set up, and I went through my meeting that I had in my studio, and then I was coming to walk back into the house to have coffee with you, and the door was locked. Apparently, you decided to wake up while I was out in my studio. I'd left the windows open. I was trying to get a good breeze in. You decided it was too hot. You came down, closed all of the windows, locked everything up, left me outside. And fortunately, I had my phone, but I was banging on the door trying to get you to come and answer. And then, I don't know, you'd locked the door, and then you went up and you went back to bed. And so I'm literally pounding on the door, locked out of the house.
I'm what is that noise? I didn't know what was going on. I thought you were at work, actually not in the office. So
no. And I told you I needed my charger because I had a meeting, and I told you that I was going to work in my studio because now I'm on my new work schedule officially because it's July. So I only work in the office on Mondays, and now I work from home the rest of the 4 days a week.
Okay. See, I was confused that day. I really thought you were physically outside the property, and the door was just close everything.
But you could have just looked in the driveway.
The driveway was outside the house.
Yeah,
that is on the east wing of the house. I was on the west wing of the house.
No, you were closing up all the doors and everything. Anyways, you locked me out, and I had to say to you, okay, no more locking the doors until you verify that I'm not in the house. Text me or something, because getting locked out is no fun, because I have no way to access the property if you lock me out. That was such a bad situation.
You could have got in your car, got your remote, opened the garage door, come in.
I couldn't have. I didn't have my keys with me. I would have been completely locked out of the house.
Oh, that would totally suck. I'm so sorry for actually closing the door on you.
Yeah, it really did suck. I was panicked because I was I was trapped. It was my first day working out in the studio, and it's my worst nightmare. Totally made me flash back to childhood trauma and things that, getting locked out from my sisters and, different things like that. And it was I was kind of paralyzed in that moment, and I almost didn't know what to do. I was just okay, you're not a kid anymore. Like, just pound on the door. And then I didn't have my phone in my pocket. So I was like, okay, I didn't lock the studio. I guess I could go back there and I could get my phone, but I just kept pounding on the door, hoping that you would get up. And fortunately you did. And you came down and you were like, what is going on? I'm like, you locked me out of that freaking house. You're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, did you just unlock the door? You're like, I don't know. I'm so tired. I'm like, obviously you weren't, because you came down and locked the door.
It was such autopilot for me, you know, like when I come down, like I was in the middle of my sleeping REM sleep, you know, like deep sleep, right in the middle of it all.
But you sleepwalked downstairs to close the door and turn on the air conditioner? I don't understand.
I could do that like sleepwalking, which I just do pretty much sleepwalk when I come downstairs.
Well, maybe I should like get a sign that says don't lock me out, because for me it really did like trigger like when I got locked out as a kid.
What you should do is got those little like signs you put on the door for podcasting. There's got to be one that says do not lock or I'm outside or something. You can put on
like a dog.
You can put on the door handle, so when I go over there, like, oh yeah, Kristine's outside. I'm not gonna.
Or you could just, you know, check in. You have been getting better about it. You come out and you like, when you can't find me, you come out and you peek in the studio to see if I'm out there. Ezekiel had a great idea, and I think I'm going to do this. He says that I need to get like one of those diner signs, like the open and closed signs, so you could just look out from the window and see like if it says open, it means like I'm in the studio.
There you go.
Isn't that a cute idea?
Something like that. Yeah.
I thought that was a great little idea.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah. But, you know, speaking of, you know, traumatic situations and childhood trauma, we have a great guest this week that's going to talk to us about how she came back from hitting rock bottom and some traumatic experiences as a child and is now setting the world on fire.
Absolutely. And we will have her right on the show right after this.
Are you in the middle of wedding planning and feeling overwhelmed? There's no need to fret, my friend. Kristine Smith Designs is here to rescue you. Offering wedding planning, coordination, and wedding floral design services, let us help relieve your stress and make your wedding day dreams a reality. Visit us at KristineSmithDesigns.com. That's KRISTINE SmithDesigns.com and request a free consultation. You'll be so glad you did. And welcome back, everybody. Today we have another fantastic guest on the show. She is an author, speaker, and a professional bodybuilder. Welcome to the show, Jules.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
I'm so
Jules.
glad. Hello, how are you guys?
Good. And you know, the crowd we hear, they go wild for you.
I heard that.
It's like you're like stepping into the Tonight Show or something like that. Guess you didn't know you were going to have a live audience over here.
This is fabulous.
Well, where in the world are you joining us from today?
I am in toasty, warm Texas.
What part of Texas? Like the South, the North? Texas is a big state, so I've seen.
Isn't it? It takes like 8 hours to get across. I'm in the Dallas area.
Okay, that's southern, right? It's closer to the border. I'm so off in geography. I don't know.
He doesn't know geography.
So it doesn't matter if I tell you anyway, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to know.
That's okay. You can tell us where.
It's a little bit more north.
Oh, okay.
It's the north part.
I think of Austin. That's south, right? Is Austin?
Yeah,
okay.
That's a little bit more south.
Okay,
yes.
that's the one I'm thinking.
And then Houston is even more south.
Then maybe it's Houston I'm thinking of.
I think,
then.
yeah, that could be.
Houston, we have a problem.
There you go.
Well, thanks so much for joining us all the way from Texas today. Is that where you've lived for a long time?
No. I am a Midwest girl. I used to live in the Midwest.
It's more specific, like Oklahoma, Tennessee.
Well, I've learned now it's called the Upper Midwest because, so I lived in a state of Wisconsin. So it's the upper Midwest, which is like, I guess, more cold than, just the Midwest.
Yeah.
So right next to Minnesota, Wisconsin area.
I wouldn't even think to call Wisconsin the Midwest, but I guess it totally is. For some reason, I think like Midwest is Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. Yeah. But then what would you
Tornado
call
Alley, right?
Yeah, but then what would you call Minnesota and Wisconsin? I guess it is the Midwest. You're right. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to join us today. We've been excited to have you on the show. So out there in Texas, Jules, have you lived there for very long?
I have. I've been here now about 8 years.
Oh, wow.
8 whole years. Wow.
It seems like it's quite a big move from Wisconsin to Texas. What was behind that big move?
And it certainly wasn't from Wisconsin to Texas, of course. There's always, the story in between. So yes, I've lived in multiple states and actually international as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Internationally, where? Was it one country or multiple countries?
Gosh, I lived in Bern, Switzerland.
Ooh.
It was so beautiful. Everything you see on the pictures and the postcards.
Matterhorn all day, huh?
I'm not a big skier. At the time, I wasn't.
Do you is there hot cocoa is really popular in Switzerland, right?
It is, well, actually, you sit outside and they have blankets.
What?
And yes, because you still want to be outside and enjoy, and so the restaurants will actually have seating areas outside, and there's blankets that everybody just uses them, and they're also like kind of like a fuzzy fur thing that you sit on.
Awesome. So what
Yeah.
is like the language that people speak in Switzerland?
It has to do, the dialect, I believe, is primarily, I want to say German primarily.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and around whatever border it is on has a little bit of that.
Okay.
So everything, so the dialect is a little different everywhere you go within the country,
That's
which
very
I could only
interesting.
say hello or goodbye.
Or hot cocoa, please.
Cocoa and blanket.
What made you decide to move to Switzerland?
You know what? I was dating somebody.
That's how it starts.
That's how it is.
Follow in love.
I fell in love. And yeah, I was there for about 1.5 years. And so with his job at the time, we would fly back to the Minnesota area about every 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was convenient, I should say, because then I never really got that homesick and I didn't lose that much touch with, the people, my friends and such.
That's always important too, because I get homesick when I just, go to LA. It's not that far from here.
Yeah. Community is everything. I don't know if I realize that as much as I do now that I'm older.
Yeah. If I lived internationally, I would be like that, where I would want to come home and visit frequently. Otherwise, I think I would definitely get homesick. And also, I think I would miss like hamburgers. Are there good hamburgers overseas, or are you a meat eater? Maybe I shouldn't assume.
Oh, yes, they have of course, all the foods we have here, but they actually call it flesh.
What?
And
Well, that just sounds weird. That just sounds weird right there.
And they will serve horse as well.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a little new. That was very new, actually. But even just little things like when you go to the grocery store, I can usually tell by the label if it's a hand washing, soap, or if that happens to be a conditioner, right? I can tell by the label. Well, there I didn't have that. And so I'd be like, is this soap? Is this conditioner? Is this lotion? I mean, it was a lot to take in. It's so much more than people think it would be. It's not as glamorous. It's everything that you take for granted, you now have to really focus and work on.
I can only imagine like the first time going to order a hamburger and them saying you want a flesh sandwich.
I don't think
Hey, like, what restaurant are we in right now?
I'm not sure if it's exactly how they say that.
Well, that's
What, triple patty flesh sandwich?
Oh my God. You know how many people are going to be blowing up my social media? Disrespecting social.
No. Well, Kris doesn't travel a lot overseas. And so whenever we get individuals on the show that have international experiences, we like to ask them about, what it was like living abroad. And do you have a favorite story from living overseas?
Living overseas compared to living in the States, it's not, I think the States kind of throws everything under one umbrella, right? Where say, I'm trying to think of even in Rome, for instance, right? So we just think of arts and that sort of stuff, museums, kind of off to the side. Well, when you're in Rome, not being funny, but when you're in Rome, you literally can see the pieces of history as you're driving through the city. The Colosseum, you can see it from on the side. It's really odd. It's odd. It was odd for me to go over there and be like, this is almost ancient history.
Right. I took my son to Rome, to a couple of different places in Europe just pre-pandemic, the summer before. And we stayed in a hotel in the same square as the Pantheon. And I remember we would just come down from our air-conditioned hotel, grab a little thing of gelato, and literally walk 10 feet. And we're staring at this thousands of year old building with all these cobblestones around it. And I'm thinking, this is so bizarre.
You know, I would say if I was there, I would say they don't make them like they used to.
And they don't. I mean, and also like the numbers on things. I was like, is that like the house number? You know, they're like, no, that is when that was built. And I was like, what? It's like, it is. It's surreal. It's almost like you've gone back into time. But it's also very, modern as well. I really enjoyed Rome. I thought it was very beautiful.
Oh, it is really so gorgeous. I say to my sister who went with us all the time, like I would go back in a heartbeat. For any reason to Italy. It was so gorgeous. I also hear
that Greece is very similar. Some places in Greece are like that, right?
I haven't been to Greece.
Me either.
I hear like that. Oh yeah. I hear, well, I'm also, my husband and I, we sail. So we are looking forward to being over in the Mediterranean.
Oh, I bet.
And experiencing some of those beautiful areas.
So do you guys own a boat or?
Right now we're in between actually.
In between boats, huh?
Yep. As you mentioned, like COVID in the pandemic, in the beginning, we actually used the boat as a fabulous getaway from all the chaos of the unknown, all the uncertainties we went through. And so that was just our little like sanctuary of sanity. And then, of course, everybody else was buying boats. And so we thought, it's time, we will be selling our boat within a year anyway. Let's go ahead and move that forward. And so we sold her early.
Wow.
What size of a boat was it?
She was a 55-foot.
That's good. That's big size.
Monohull.
That's a big one, right? It's like the double motor one or whatever, right?
So there's a monohull and there's also a catamaran. So catamarans are the ones that have those two hulls that go into the water, and a monohull has just one that goes into the water. And so those are the boats you see that are leaning way over.
Right.
So that's the type of boat this one was.
Got it.
Look at that.
Yep.
That sounds so incredible. Like that's something that I always have admired, people that know how to operate sailboats in the water, because they just seem like, I don't know. I see the regattas and things out here in San Diego when we look at the bay, because we're located in San Diego County. And I look at people that are captaining these different sailboats, and I'm thinking that's a whole different level of skills that I just don't think I'm equipped with.
But I admire that, though, being able to sail, not to use actual like engine power. You think about how they did that so many years ago.
Yeah.
Everywhere they went was by sail. And think about the original explorers, how they sailed across the Atlantic around the world.
And the pirates.
Of course, and the pirates too. All by wind, and not even no engines, no gas, nothing.
Yes. And my husband and I have done quite a bit of sailing. I've got my day skipper certificate, which means that I can sail that boat by myself.
Ooh, look at you.
I just can't have paying passengers. And I've got about probably like 3,500 miles under my belt.
Wow.
Of sailing open water.
That's amazing.
Sailing.
That's gotta be scary. Open, like when you can't see land. Oh,
can't see land.
That's gotta be the scariest thing ever. I've seen so many movies.
That's the problem.
What's the one we just saw with the girl that got stranded? The one she went to. The girl's from San Diego.
Yes. What was that called?
Adrift.
Adrift.
Oh,
yes.
the one you showed to me. Yes.
Yeah.
My husband made us watch that on the boat.
Oh my goodness.
No way. Were you out to see what
I mean? Yes, we were out to sea.
Whoa. Yeah.
Like, this is not funny.
No.
Yes.
And there was another one with Robert Redford about 10 years ago. Another one. He was in a small yacht. Same thing happened.
Okay.
Got shipwrecked or something. It was a whole survival thing.
Well, we're going to talk about all of the positive stuff.
I'm
with
sorry.
sailing.
I find it very fascinating. And that's one of the reasons why I won't go open water, like ever.
It's magnificent. And it is the most, I think, serene thing you can ever experience. It's probably my favorite place to be.
Well, Kris loves to watch all of those like worst case scenario types of movies, like the boat crashes. What's the one, Locked Up Abroad?
Oh, that's a different story altogether.
Yeah,
that's the cocaine in my backpack, and they pulled me into secondary, and I'm screwed.
So this is why he doesn't travel overseas very much. So we live vicariously
I think that
through
might be
the
a good
podcast.
idea.
Yeah.
Keep ship him home.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like you've had a recent life of adventure, but in reading your biography, it seems like you've overcome quite a bit in your life. And so we'd love to hear a little bit about your story of what you've overcome to get to the point of where you are today.
All in a nutshell. Let's see. As I spoke of, I was born and raised in the Midwest, and this is, back in the 70s. And I mentioned that because the resources were so limited, especially for women.
Mm-hmm.
And, I lived in a very, very small town. I mean, we lived outside of town. And my mom just, she worked at an insurance agency and just minimum wage. And my dad was, we struggled, right? It was just that small town mentality. But my dad also struggled with the disease of alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And so he would go through, fits that ultimately happened with that disease, and struggling to financially provide for his family. I couldn't imagine how devastating that must have been. And so alcohol was the answer to that a lot of times. And so one thing in particular that really kind of shot us off onto our journeys was one evening my dad came home in one of these fits, and he had it planned that he was going to do a family suicide.
Oh my gosh.
And I was 6. And I loved my daddy. I adored my daddy. He took me everywhere. I mean, I was never separate from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never saw that side. And so when all of this chaos is happening at late hours of the night, I'm just like, what? Wait, why? What's going on? And, I pretty much like grabbed my Grover, if you remember him, Grover by the hand.
Sesame
And,
Street, right?
Yeah. And my mom and I, we fled off into the night, and it was like, wait, what's happening?
Right.
Thank God. Nobody died that night.
Oh, thank God.
Nobody didn't. Nobody. I totally believe in a source, this power bigger than me. And the phone happened to ring, and I can't see that as coincidence. And It happened to be one of my dad's friends.
Mm.
And it allowed my mom enough time to grab me and fly out the back door. So yeah, that's kind of how life started, and a lot of confusion.
Right.
And so, I've through my healing, I've been able to kind of go back and put my feet in my mom's shoes and be like, wow, what was it like to have those options as choices? What would have I done? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she, within a 6-month window, remarried into a very large family, it wasn't surprising. This is a woman who made minimum wage.
Right.
And we know that dad wasn't going to be able to help us. In fact, we now had a restraining order. He was no longer to be near us.
Oh, wow.
And so we moved into this really large family, one of 6 kids I became. And I just got lost.
How was that transition for you when you went into that larger family, going from where you were at, adjusting?
I think scary is one, right? Because I was an only child before, and I was adored actually as an only child. And now I'm part of a pack who nobody knows me. And in fact, they're kind of like, why is she here? So it was really like, okay, so this is supposed to be my family. But one cool thing about it is that there was a younger brother who is my age. And through, I think that was the saving grace. Like, we were 2 peas in a pod at that point in time. And so then we just, that's pretty much what got me through my adolescence in that family. And that's also where, a lot of trauma happened. That whole family was very incestuous and did not stop when I moved in, when my mom and I moved in.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah. And I learned that went way back into like the grandparents, it just, as we know, that sort of toxic behaviors is a learned behavior. And
was that when you were in the Midwest area, the Minnesota area?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just didn't know if that was maybe a thing that happens in that area. I don't know.
I don't know if it's a thing, because I do believe it happens everywhere. But I do have to think that when you limit people's resources, and you know what I'm saying? Like when you kind of confine people, that they don't have the exposure to life outside. They don't, if there is a problem, they're not quickly to pick up the phone and say, I need to get some help or some counseling, and I also think that when you don't have a lot of diversity in one area, you just follow the pack.
Right. That's all you kind of know.
That's all you know. And I'm by all means not stating that everybody in the Midwest has this sort of toxic behavior.
No, but you do hear like there's always those running like running. I say like not say
well,
jokes.
there's instances, yeah.
Yeah, but there's always kind of like the backhanded, like, oh, they're from the South or the Midwest or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what they do over there.
Well, so moving beyond the details of, where it happens, I'm just thinking of you as this, 6 or 7-year-old going through trauma with your father who you idolized and now kind of getting lost in the shuffle. And I think of, being an educator, the amount of trauma that would evoke in your life. How did that impact you at a young age?
What comes to mind is the way that we moved into a trailer, like a mobile home. And the way it was set up is then my mom, who is really the only person I have, like in connection to me, has literally moved herself to the front of this trailer because that's where that master bedroom was. And all the kids got packed in the back. So physically now I'm removed from my mom. And so, and so now I the people who I'm living with, right? The kids, right? Again, they're not real fond that I'm there. This abuse is starting to take place. I don't even know who I could tell if I could tell somebody. Do I supposed to tell somebody? I mean, it was a lot. And so really what I did is I just shut down.
Oh, wow.
I shut down and I went in and I'll look at pictures of me and I just look at this little girl and my heart just drops. It's like, I'm just a small little blonde-headed, like pale-skinned little girl. And my head's kind of, I'm kind of like, my head's kind of dropped down. And it's just like, oh my gosh, but that was safe for me.
Right.
My now new, stepfather, he was very overwhelming and very domineering. And so he would, tell the kids, like we had these really tight regiments we had to do, like the food on the table had to go in a certain direction. And, you had to ask to be excused. And, there was just all of these rules. And so it was best for me just to stay out of the light.
Right.
And that's what I did. And it worked.
So that pattern of making yourself small, almost invisible, so that you fly under the radar, did that follow with you through adolescence and your teenage years?
Absolutely. It did. There was a time moving ahead, probably when I must have been around like say 10, 11, 12, right in that area. And I went to a YMCA camp. And this is where everything changed. So now I've got, a few years under my belt with this family. I've kind of found my spot and know what to do and not do. And so I went to this camp and I did not know that you don't supposed to tell that kind of stuff.
Oh.
And so here I am amongst all these fantastic girls who are my age and they're laughing with me and they're joking with me and we're playing. And of course the counselors are there and they're doing their therapy. And so when the question came up, I was like, I just let it all out. And that ultimately we know that, the counselor, they're required to report that to the authorities.
She knows because she's told me the same thing with her job.
Mandated reporters, yeah.
Yep. I didn't go home. I was taken out of the home that night by the authorities.
Oh, my word.
And so I lived at one of those counselors' home. And she was recently divorced and she was on her wild streak, we'll say. And so there was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of men. I'm now, in that puberty stage. The only skills I really know how to use to get the love and attention is being promiscuous.
Oh, wow.
And these are older men. I mean, there's no shame, I guess. And so then, once this all happened, that the family unit then came apart. Ultimately, my mom filed for a divorce. We moved back to the Midwest because of the connections with the family. And at this point in time, I'm at that ninth grade level.
Oh, wow.
And so now I'm growing up a little bit. I'm feeling a little bit of my power, right? Because that's what I learned at this household. And so then now you move me back into a very small town again. And I'm too big for the town, and I'm not getting a great welcome. And I was enrolled, I did high school. And so it was ninth grade and must have been like a quarterly check-in type of thing. And so the counselor there, called me in and said, Jules, remember, this is in ninth grade. He says, I don't think you're going to be very successful here. He says, I really think we should look into maybe getting you a GED.
What?
Like they want to get you out of the school, like away from everybody else kind of thing?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was a high school administrator, Jules. So like I'm literally, if you were in the room with me, I'm like holding my heart right now because that just makes me think of that ninth grade year is such a formative year and you're just trying to like wrestle with your identity and your voice and who you are in the world. And for somebody to speak that over your life as if it's truth, that must have, I mean, maybe at the time you didn't realize it, but that must have been devastating to you.
Actually, at the time, it was the ticket out of jail.
Oh.
Now I have nobody telling me what I have to do, what I don't have to do. Because this household, again, is like, my mom is still, she's still very domineering and now it's like, I don't have to listen to anybody and I don't have to do things that I don't want to do anymore. And so I literally hit the streets.
Like ran away from home?
Ran away from home.
Oh my goodness. So like 14, 15?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Did you have
14.
anybody support at all? Anybody you could go to when you were on the streets?
No, I didn't, because I didn't go to family. Most people would think, you'd go live with a family member or something. But again, that midtown or that, Midwestern mindset, my family is pretty much like, we're not going to deal with her. I raged a lot. I was a very angry child at this point.
Right. I can imagine. I mean, gosh.
Absolutely. All of this is coming up. And better yet, I don't want to be around you. And so I had friends who didn't know my story, who liked me for who I was. I slept in the closet of one of my girlfriends for like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
and I called that heaven.
So you were like couch surfing, closet surfing, whatever, wherever you could go, just kind of flitting with the wind. And so how did you get out of that lifestyle? But I'm making an assumption that you did soon. What was the next 10 years of your life like?
The couch surfing then shifted to, now remember that my currency is my being promiscuous.
Right.
That's my currency. And so this is what I've been told I'm good at. This is when I get the love and attention that I need. Heck, I even get a roof over my head. Right. And so this is my currency. And so then I started shifting from relationship to relationship to relationship. And this went on for 19 years.
How long was the relationships usually lasting?
I actually pulled out my taxes because, thank goodness there's blackouts in my story.
Right.
The last 3 years, I had moved 13 times.
Wow.
That's like once every 12 weeks.
That's crazy.
So that just tells me that is the spiraling of meeting somebody, exploding and being kicked out. It was like that.
By the time it all kind of ramps up,
Yeah.
Wow, it's nuts.
Yeah.
And we don't mean that in a mean way. It's just for us, trying to get an understanding of your story because like where you've come, who you are today, if people didn't sit down and listen to this story, they wouldn't know all of that about you. So how long did it take for you to emerge from this, what transient lifestyle? Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, in a cycle. It was really just a cycle because the people changed. The story stayed the same. Right. And so, and ultimately I'm a child of trauma now in the disease of alcoholism.
So that's what pulled you in.
Yeah.
You pulled into alcoholism also?
because alcohol has been part of my story way back to when I was like a baby sitting in a high chair. I have beer in my bottle.
Oh,
Did you
wow.
really? Did your
I
parents
did. But this is back when you would put a little bit of, whiskey or whatever on the kids' gum.
to kind of get them to calm down or
To
whatever?
settle them down. Yes. So, but alcohol, like, people think, oh, party and have a great time. It's like alcohol was my solution. Alcohol made me feel normal enough that I could be around other people, because
Gotcha.
inside of me, I have this boiling pot, and it's always boiling at maybe a medium.
Mhm.
And so if you can imagine, you go through life, you hit these bumps, things heat up. Well, I'm already at 50%.
Wow.
So I very much explosive.
Wow. That's just,
Yeah.
it just seems so heavy to walk through all of that. How did it really not affect you, or did it feel heavy on your life throughout all of that time?
Towards the end, I got to the point where I remember telling my mom, I'm tired of starting over. I'm so tired. It's like everything I tried just would fall through my fingers, everything. And the funny thing is that all I wanted to do was just have my independence. I just wanted to get a job, get my career so I could get my feet underneath me so I could have my own. Then I wanted a condo, right? My own condo, my own car, and then everybody could just leave me alone, right? So I have 7 transcripts.
Wow.
So one of the things I have learned in this lifetime is resilience.
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds like you had all of the conditions that would make you, like, I think of your name Jules, and it's like, how does a jewel develop? It's like pressure, and out of like the depths of the earth, it's surrounded by heat and pressure. So you definitely, like you had said before the interview, not just one jewel but multiple jewels. Yeah, you've had enough fire and pressure on you for a lifetime. But
exactly.
So just thinking through as you navigated this journey for yourself. One of the things that came to my mind is so many people, when they're battling any type of addiction or substance abuse challenges, they talk about hitting like a single rock bottom that helped them kind of come to their senses about needing to change. Did you have that one defining rock bottom, or was it a series of events that led you to want to change your life?
I found, I jokingly now say, I just kind of, I bounced around on the bottom. I think there was probably 3 good hits that I barely got out of. And the thing is that the delusion of the disease, I believe, or the delusion of my state will stay, is that I could not see that I was the problem. I could not see that I had all of this stuff inside of me. I just kept pushing, endlessly pushing forward with that goal of like, well, I can get it this time. I can get that job this time. And I mean, it pretty much took those 3 hard knocks, and the last knock, it was, I moved here to Texas, and I was dating somebody, and I happened to be in the car with some of their friends while they were at work, and we were going to meet them when he was done. And so what I did, just nonchalantly, I just said, I just wish I didn't drink so much. And the 2 people in the front seat, little did I know, they're both in recovery.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. So they know that very well then.
They know a hot mess when they see one. That's what I've been thinking.
Right.
And at that minute, I think there is within a 30-minute window, I was sitting in the chairs in recovery.
Wow. Now, was that you decided to go, or they took you there unwillingly?
I think it was one of those, Jules, we're going to go do this. And I was like, okay.
You coming, Jules? We're going to go here.
Exactly. Because it's like, I'm kind of done fighting at this state. We call it the gift of desperation. Mm. You just get to this point where you're like, your hands, you just throw them in the air. You're like, man, it's like that the human soul only has so much hope. Right. And so, and I'm very mindful of that when I interact with others, But I went into this really smoky, gross, disgusting room. The thing of an alcoholic is that we will be, on Skid Row and, we'll look at somebody and say, well, geez, look what they're wearing. Or, it's like we are always like judging people and we're the ones who are in the worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah.
But that day I sat down in that cold metal chair and I don't remember anything that was said. All I remember is that there was a lot of people there, so it did feel really like congested, but it was the first time that tears came to my eyes in probably 10 to 12 years.
Wow.
And what do you think that the source of those tears was? Was it relief or was it anger?
I think what it was is that it's the first time I felt that love in the room.
Mm.
And it is maybe only love of friendship. Maybe it was the love of that community. But I hadn't had that kind of love because where I came from and all of those moves and all of those situations and scenarios, I picked up weapons as defenses.
Right.
I would pick up layers and layers and layers of armor to protect me as I continued to, move forward. And so, at that time, I then, that was it. Whatever happened in that room, I'm like, I want to go back. I want to go back to whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to another meeting the next day and the next day. And the thing that it almost kind of makes me cry to think of it, but the thing that made me keep going back, it was that, first off, I was welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
At this point in time, there was not many places I was welcome back.
Right.
And it was the women who gave me hugs. That was the only like micro inch, I guess, of love that I could receive.
And it sounds like they saw you. And I think it goes back to part of your origin story where you were talking about making yourself small.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of avoid being pulled into the drama and the trauma that surrounded you. You're finally put into a situation where people, not only do they see you for who you really are, but they're reserving judgment and they're providing empathy, love, and some type of nurturing to help you grow. That must have felt, I would think that it would be frightening and exhilarating at the same time. Like, oh my gosh, they see the real me. Am I going to get rejected? But also, wow, what is this new thing? And that almost, it's like you want to get closer to it. Did you feel like you toggled between those two sets of emotions, like fear and excitement that entire time through your recovery?
And a lot of anger.
Oh, yeah.
And that was part of it. So I think it was kind of almost like on a layer, like layers, right? So, because now we've taken away my Band-Aid. I no longer can have my solution to life.
Oh, right.
So now I'm not drinking. I'm not doing anything. And so now I'm raw. And so the whole world feels like pricklies hitting me. I mean, people would glance at me and I would be offended because I couldn't numb out of that. And then it got to, and that I think is the most magnificent thing about the rooms of recovery is that there are all these different walks of life and we all come together with one common interest. And it's to help that person, like who I was, come in there. I mean, there were times I would lash out in the middle of a meeting. I mean, I would swear, I would wear the wrong clothing. I mean, I was just a hot mess. And they said, Jules, we'll see you tomorrow. Come back. We're going to see you tomorrow.
You're still welcome, even through all that.
I didn't even have that with my own family.
Right. Yeah.
Like, who are these people? And so I did. And I just kept doing it. And then, I'm very focused. And so I'm like, I'm not going to drink. Absolutely not. Have no intentions. And the one story I love to tell is they say, you're going to have to find something a little bigger than yourself there, girl, because you're not it. It's not working. And so, they have various, options, I guess, that you can use to connect to this source. And if you think, Texas heat, where it's probably like August or something, we're well above the hundreds, it's hot, it's muggy. And I came out of one of these meetings, and out of nowhere was this gust of wind. And it wished around and actually kind of lifted my hair off my shoulders. And it made me stop in my tracks. And I was like, there's nobody who can make the wind blow. That's source.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, from that moment, I was like, okay, I have a source. I have this. I can do this. And so then it was the warmth of the sun on my skin. It was the clean air. It was the water. I mean, I took in like all the basic elements.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started incorporating them into my life. If that was drawing them, writing about them, whatever.
Well, it sounds like that's something that's continued through your life. When you were talking about sailing a few minutes ago and
Yes.
the open ocean, I know that for me, when I was coming out of my first marriage, which had abuse involved in it, I found that I was really drawn to water, and I would sit by creeks where I could hear the water. When I moved down to San Diego in the evenings, I would sit on the beach so that I could hear the waves. And for some reason, I don't know what it is about certain elements of nature. I think it's just so basic and simple that it just kind of anchors you back into.
There's a calming with it too.
Yeah,
I believe. The sound of it, especially with the ocean, especially being like you open water, like you're saying, Jules, is we have the sloshing of the boat and sloshing of the water up against the side of the boat, and the splashing and the simpleness of it. I bet that really helps.
And I believe there's also like a scientific basis here that the ions exchange with our radicals opposed to what the ocean is. And that's why every time we go to the beach, or people get real sleepy or real like relaxed, or because on a chemical level, we're actually, finding our like our balance in a sense.
Right.
So yes, the ocean is definitely so healing. So healing.
And so you anchored into that through your recovery. Did you have favorite places that you would go when you were feeling a little bit out of sorts, or was it just being in nature in general would help reground you?
Really, in the beginning, I couldn't be by myself. And I say that because my head was too busy.
Oh, yeah.
That's very, very common. We call it chatter or monkey mind or whatever it may be. And so for me, probably that first year, I worked a lot. I worked in healthcare. And so that would knock out 12 hours of my day. And then I would then go to a meeting, which would be another hour. And before I know it, well, it's time to go to bed.
Right.
So that's how it started. But then it was started to like mine started like with like I'd done yoga, like that kind of stuff. I was always into like the meditative type of things. And, and so I started, listening to, guided meditations. I researched and learned about gems and stones. It just wherever I went, I just kind of went with the flow of whatever felt good and that I knew was good for me.
Jules, how many years did you go through that process
of getting sober?
Yeah.
I think the first year is a physical sobriety. You physically clean your body. The second year is where it becomes like a mental. This is where you really start working through and you're looking at the messes you've made or things you want to clean up. And then around that third year, that's when the spirituality starts coming in. This is where you start having some wisdom, a peace of mind, the tranquility, that serenity that we seek. For me, my recovery, I guess, it's ongoing because there's so many layers, right? Like we talk about an onion peeling back. And I think that's how healing is no matter what. So, I'm grateful that I'm very far from the date that we're talking about right now, but there's still times where something will rear its ugly head and I'll be like, oh, you are back. And it's like, yes, I am, because now in this situation, it's a little different. And so then I need to learn through something different at this current time. So I don't know if you ever really, or I will ever really fully recover, but I never crave. I don't crave alcohol.
That's good. That's a
Yeah,
good
I
thing.
don't have any of those sorts of symptoms. Now I think it's just practicing being a human.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
You and
That's
me.
hard.
Yeah, you and me both. I also had not quite as extreme as your situation, but I had my struggles with alcohol and some drugs too. And I am sober today. And like I don't even really crave it either. In fact, now when I do drink alcohol, if I do, it makes me feel very ill.
Yeah, you get very sick the next day, and
I think my body is rejecting it now.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of rejected that whole, because I haven't drank it that much, or hardly any. That when I do, even it's like one drink, it's like it's me headache, and I don't feel that very well. So it's my body saying, nope, not for you anymore.
Yeah, stop this. Let's not do this.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so with that journey, you're working your steps, working your recovery.
Mhm.
Where did that lead you in terms of love? Because it seemed like a lot of what you went through was this seeking attachment and seeking healthy love. Where are you at with that now?
That was probably one of the biggest things I had to learn. Because the lack of trust, zero trust in other people, left me on my own. And so, what I would do is a lot of internal stuff, like a lot of meditation. I would, really tap into this source, like whatever that was. And so that's where I found a lot of that love and connection, was actually just learning who I was. Right. That was very, very fulfilling to me. I had learned that I'm a good person with a bad disease.
Right.
Those sorts of things that just warmed my heart, because I don't have to be that warrior anymore. Right. Like I don't have to fight those battles anymore. And so now as I move ahead, I remember, I was 5 years sober and I had my first best friend. It was the first girlfriend that I trusted enough to tell her one of my secrets, we'll say, but that was 5 years into it. And even, coming forward now, again, like this onion I spoke of a bit ago about is like, we're peeling back, and so when I met, my now husband, oh my gosh, that was a whole new episode of life. And,
Right.
and it just really shook a lot of my foundation, because oh my God, you're a man. And now you want me to do what? And give you this and meet you halfway here. And, there was actually a point in time where the chatter, right? I tell him about the chatter. I'm at a stage where I can actually, express that I'm having some really, difficult feelings right now. And I would wake up in the morning and he would bring my coffee in and he would put a little Post-it note down. And so I'd kind of wake up to that smell of the coffee, and then Post-it note would say, I'm not going anywhere.
Aww.
And he's like, I am going to outlive those tapes.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever it takes until you understand that I am not going anywhere.
How did that feel for you, Jules, to have somebody show up for you like that in the way that you'd always dreamt you would be loved?
It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I can
It
imagine.
scared you just because you're afraid it's going to be too good to be true and it's going to disappear like that.
Now, keep in mind, I've been, how many years now I've seen, wolf in sheep clothing, right? So,
Yeah. Yes.
So, you're always like, you're feeling the room out. You're like, something's a little shady here, and now here comes Prince Charming.
Oh, yeah.
And all of this like you are like really going over the top here. Like I can't even detect a flaw. But again, during the beginning of the marriage, I also needed to learn a lot about me, like how is it to cohabitate with somebody at this level of sobriety, right? And there's been times even in I would say probably the last 3 years, I can say that we can throw away the Post-it notes. That didn't come overnight. And I had asked Source in one of my evening conversations before going to bed for my husband, and I had said, I know that you know me better than anybody, but if it's in my highest and best, I would really love to find somebody I could fall head over heels in love with. And it was like in a 2-week window. I mean, it was unbelievable. And looking back, I know I wouldn't have picked him because he has so much patience with me. I wouldn't even known that I needed that much patience as I grew through this.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that, Kris?
Patience with your wife. I understand.
That you have the patience for me? I thought you were saying that I have endless patience for you.
Maybe both. Maybe both.
I have endless patience for you. I was thinking that because he said things like that to me before about like, gosh, you put up with a lot from me, and your mom.
That is true.
And your mom says that to me all the time.
She always says that. My mom always says that.
She's like, thank you so much for, putting up with my son. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for recognizing that.
I was like, you're welcome. It is, it is a service.
Service.
Just teasing. I love you.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I could see how that's definitely a journey. I think of my own emerging from the complicated past that I had in my previous marriage, and how you come out from situations of trauma very wounded, and how there comes this point where you have to just really grapple with being able to believe what you are worthy of, and that it's okay to hope, and it's okay to, wish that you would have that partner that will show up for you. And then when it does happen, getting, like Kris was saying, getting past that mindset of it's too good to be true, or it's all going to go away, or like you had said, Jules, that it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, to actually have that stick around and to grow in your life. Do you still wake up some days and be like, geez, this is like the best thing ever?
I do have the moments of like, I'm visiting. Like, this is not my life, is it? Like, so many times, because they tell us in recovery that, it's pretty much when you started drinking is how old you are, right?
Yeah.
That's like the maturity rate, right? So, okay, it's like, okay, well, I'm sitting at 15 right now. So I'm like 15 years old, right? So sometimes I'm like, is this even possible? And because again, I still have my old behaviors of things like, well, I only should have 2 pairs of shoes, one for school and one for after school, right? Well, no, you can have more than 2 pairs of shoes. So it's like I have to kind of unlearn things sometimes, and sometimes it's just like, oh my gosh, I would have never guessed. And I call these my perfect moments. I'll be sitting in the car, maybe my husband's driving, and I'll be like, I'm having a perfect moment. And he'll be like, what is it? I'm like, my tummy's full. This is a beautiful car. I got my best friend next to me. We're going here and the sun is out,
I love
and we're
that.
like, okay, it's a perfect moment.
I'm going to start using that now. I love that.
Yes, they're like little gratitude moments, I think.
Now, with the story and the life that you've led, Jules, it sounds like you have a lot of wisdom and, like you said, resilience to be able to share forward with others. I was reading in your bio that you wrote a memoir, co-authored a memoir about your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it might support our listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Now, keep in mind, during this upbringing, we certainly did not go to church. And we didn't have any sort of like connection or anything greater than the family I was in. And so now that I am on this side, I've really grown this, this attachment. And so I'm very mindful of what comes at me and if it resonates with me, right? And so, throughout the years, you have a story like mine, and I'm telling you, you tell somebody and they'll be like, girl, you got to write a book. I mean, it's like, that's what you hear right away. And so it's, the intention has been set for many years. And in fact, the title of the book was actually something that came to me in a meditation. And so, it just happened to be as things happen in my life, is one thing happened, this one moved, and this, and then the perfect person came. And so that's when I met Marlena. And it was right when the lockdown started, right? Everybody's kind of in the panic. I'm like, well, she's like, we can put this together in about 6 months.
Wow.
And I was like, let's do this. And so I did kind of what we're doing right now. She, of course, we weren't in the same room. And so every week we would meet and I would tell her, I would start where I left off the week before. And her having similar background, was able to bring in words that I did not know how to express. Right. And the cool thing about the book is because I didn't want it to be another one of those wonk, 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 wonk. You know, I didn't want it to be there's already enough trauma in the world. I really don't want to, sprinkle anymore. It's like I wanted this to be inspiring, yet I didn't want to fluff it up. I mean, this is the real stuff. And so what we found is that if we stayed in what I call the language of the heart. And so what that is like when I say the word, fear or terrified, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if I say joyful and exciting and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's fabulous. You know what this feels like, and so this is the line that I navigated through this timeline. So I give bits and pieces as we go, but what it is I'm taking the reader along with me in my emotions. So as I talk about walking up the stairs, the dark stairs from the basement, and you pretty much, you can feel like, oh my gosh, is there going to be something like a hand or something coming through? So we just described a lot of the emotions that I felt going through this. And there were some chapters, they were so tough. They were so tough. A couple of them, of course, social media is fabulous and sometimes it's not so fabulous. And so there's a couple times that I couldn't put the timeline together. I had a couple breaks. And so I would get online and I would see the people who I have only seen as a child. I see them as an adult today.
Oh, wow.
And that was startling. So to pull up, Facebook or whatnot and to see that person, where that person is today and be like, and then to feel all those feelings and then have this this feeling come up as like, and you can't do anything to me anymore. I'm an adult now too.
Was it anger? Was it anger or sadness or a combination of both when you saw those images?
In the beginning, I think it was that little girl, right? That little, and then it was just this huge liberation of you know what, baby? I'm a big girl now too. So you can't hurt me anymore. You know what I mean?
Was it interesting to see what they were doing though in life? Like, oh, look, the guy's a doctor, or that guy's a whatever, or whatever they're doing. Or was it just like, oh, I knew he would be amount to nothing. So there he is. The
same thing as when we left.
Yeah.
Even worse. I mean, so yeah, I did not, I definitely got out alive.
Right. Yeah.
So for this book that you wrote, that is your story, when was it officially published, or has it been?
It has. And she kind of has an entity of her own. So you'll hear me reference that. The book's name is The Making of a Woman from the Inside Out.
Wow.
And she was released in October of last year.
21.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so do you go around and speak to people around the topic of your book, or how do you promote it?
I got a publicist when we first started this. And so a lady out of California just took it off the rails. And so we did book launch parties. We did a lot of online stuff. We did giveaways. And of course, we, have like meet and greets online. And so I got to meet all these different people. And, I was just thinking, this is going to be other women who have been in my shoes. And I was totally surprised when men were coming to me saying, well, this is why my wife does this. Or the moms who saying, that's why my daughter does this. So it's just like, wow, I didn't expect all of this sort of response. And one of the things that was fantastic is that she is a 2-time award-winning memoar at this stage.
That's amazing.
Yes. So it was humbling to write that. I had a little bit of growth, little growth cycle to go through to put a book out like that. But yeah, it's been amazing.
It would seem that you have to dig deep to be able to get to the point where you can share your story with that much vulnerability and transparency. Did that have any impact on your sobriety, or were you able to stay pretty steady and grounded throughout that whole book development process?
This is a great question, because when I got into recovery, again, I had all this armor on. The last thing I ever imagined was to become vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the word serenity on the wall and I was thinking, do you not know where I just came from?
Right.
Like, I'm not surrendering to anything.
Right. Yeah.
And so to write, one of the things that being in the rooms like that does is that, you share a little bit, you share about a day, but what happened is you're practicing this vulnerability. And so then, after, again, like I lived overseas and I've lived in different parts of the country where, then you become a guest speaker. They have you come in, they come and tell your stories. So you practice all the time about showing this vulnerable side. And then you show what you did about it, what are the outcomes of it.
Mm-hmm.
So little did I know that what was happening all along was actually preparing me for something like this. And so for me, people are astounded when they're like, oh my gosh, how can you just put this all out there? And I'm like, I've been putting it out there for years because it's, I'm human. And the reason I'm putting it out there is because you're human too. And there's no reason for people to suffer when others have the answers. Mm-hmm. And that's really what this is.
Right. You don't want anyone else to get hurt.
No.
And so with that being said, and with this journey of writing your memoir, what last words would you like to leave our listeners with who might be struggling through a range of different things, whether it's, confronting their own addictions or really wrestling with the fact that they've had a life of trauma? What would you say to them?
It was said to me, and it moved my foundation. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're doing. It's all part of the full plan. Little did I know when I was bouncing around for all those years what it was preparing me for. It's part of my story today. All of the things that were seen as negatives, dropout, promiscuous, well, now that makes me highly, educated. I'm, liberated. They become my gems. And so I learned that I'm exactly where I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that gave me just a lot of relief. Like, oh, okay. I can just relax for a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Well, Jules, thank you so much for being on our show today. Where can our listeners find your book and follow you in your journey?
We made this fantastic website. I call her my mothership. And it's the name of the book. It's themakingofawoman.com.
Themakingofawoman.com.
Awesome.
Yep, you'll find all the channels. You'll see all, I've been a guest. I've been blessed to be a guest on many podcasts, and you'll see my blogs in there, and of course how to get the book, and of course you can chat with me there. That's also very rewarding, is to hear other people's stories.
That's wonderful. So listeners, check out our notes at the end of this show. The show notes that Kris puts together will put the information on how you can find Jules and her book. Jules, we want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate your transparency and sharing your journey with us and our listeners.
This has been a wonderful opportunity. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. If you love music and podcasting, now you can have both. Introducing the brand new K2 radio station, available 24/7 on the Live 365 app for free.
Specializing in rock and alternative music, we're talking bands like Coldplay, Nirvana, Muse, Imagine Dragons, and yes, even the Rolling Stones. They have all stopped by to drop off songs, and we even have brand new popular tracks added every single day.
Also on the free K2 radio station, we are including podcasting. Get the best of both worlds. Download the free Live 365 app or listen online at live365.com and type in K2 Radio.
Hey, that was great having Jules on the show today. I feel really bad for all the traumatic things she had to go through and endure in her life.
Yeah, definitely. But, listening to her and listening to her story, it helps me to understand how resilient we are. And it's unfortunate that people have to be that resilient because of the circumstances they've gone through. But I know for me, I've gone through a lot of difficult situations, not in the same way Jules did, but with my health challenges that I had as a teenager. And I know that it's helped me to figure out how to overcome so many other really challenging situations as an adult. And, I'm just really appreciate her transparency and her honesty with us. And I'm really excited to get my hands on a copy of her book to see what I can learn from it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to actually even say what the things she had to go through and to come out and realize that stuff and kind of share her path that she's been on. It's a real challenge. Just coming out, and a lot of people do is they will just kind of hide that stuff and kind of keep it to themselves and not really share really with
right and not let other people know what they're I'm trying to remember what it was. Okay, there was this quote by George Clooney, or no, it was Michelle Pfeiffer on this movie One Fine Day, and George Clooney. They were talking about like their deep dark chocolate layer. It was just this example that they were using, like that sometimes it's hard to let other people know what that deep dark layer is inside of you, that hard stuff that you've been through, because you don't know if you're going to be accepted by them. But I think that the real strength in overcoming so many challenging situations is getting to the point where you're not worried about whether or not they're going to accept you. You realize that your story has power and other people need to hear it so that they can see that you've come through it and they can too.
Right. People do relate to other people too. I think a lot of times when people come out and share their difficult stories and they show some hope on the other end, then when somebody sees that or hears that, they realize that, I've gone through very similar things in my life, and perhaps there's a silver lining for me too at the other end of this.
Absolutely. And so if you want to hear more about Jewel's story or get in contact with her, we're going to leave all of her information in the show notes from this episode, as well as links to where you can find more about her and her book. Anything else you want to add, Kris?
Not too much. You got anything else? We wrap this up, baby?
No, I just want to say thanks everybody for sticking with us through our fun little stories about fireworks and childhood antics. And we just appreciate you so much, and all of our listeners. Where can everybody find us?
You can go to the website, which is krisandkristineshow.com. We got every single thing you want to know about right on over there. We got a little bit of podcasting audio over there. We got a link to K2 Radio, and the fabulous Christine Smith Designs is right on over there too.
Definitely. So make sure to listen, subscribe to this episode, leave us a review, and check out the links for our fabulous guest this week. And just a reminder that our family is going to be out of the office, which means there will be no episode of the Kris and Kristine Show next week while we're spending time with family. We hope to be back with you the following week, but it all depends on what our family needs. So we're taking our little summer break, and we'll be back with you.
Summer vacation.
I know. And we're going to take the kids to the land of Mickey Mouse. And so...
Oh, boy. Gee, you're going to see my house.
Oh my goodness. That's the creepiest thing ever.
How dare you?
Oh, well, we will be back with you once we get back and get our kiddos settled. It'll probably be a 2-week break just to make sure that we're getting everything wrapped up here at home.
Oh, boy.
But in our absence, you can listen to some of our old episodes, and then we'll be back with you in a few weeks.
That's right. Goodbye, everybody.